Well, here we are, Stu, on this very important week in America where we celebrate and give thanks to the bountiful nation that we live in.
I think there's a lot to be thankful for. I suspect, though, that you led into this with a touch of sarcasm and that we can expect a sign of dissatisfaction or two.
You're so wrong. You don't know me at all, Stu. You don't know how I feel blessed every day to live in a city that is being run into the ground. Some of the worst people, most terrible human beings. But on that note, though, I am today going to try to think of things that I am thankful for and some hopeful signs after we have been through 4 years of darkness under this left-wing progressive nightmare that has been orchestrated at the top by Joe Biden, one of the dumbest presidents we've ever had, one of the worst presidents we've had. I can't think of anyone worse. A matter of fact, the only accomplishment of his entire tenure is that he got rid of Donald Trump. And then instead of resting on that success and building upon it, he set forth the pathway for Trump's return through his innumerable mishaps and misleading. I can't even go on it. But on that all said, enough about dumb Joe. We'll be in Nantucket with that fake doctor of a wife of his.
You gotten on to the positive part yet?
I am.
The thankful part?
I hope a whale sweeps them into the ocean and we never see them again. I would be thankful for that. But on another note, I think now that we are ending this very dark period, the Biden period, one of the things that I'm very happy about is Walmart had made a complete reversal. Its CEO, Doug McMillon, announced that they are ending the DEI programs. So they are going to stop sharing data with the Human Rights Campaign, which tracks LGBTQ.
QRMF.
Right. And then they're also going to stop with the third-party merchandise with all the, LGBTQ initiatives upon it. And they are no longer going to use terms in their communications like Latinx and DEI.
The he, she, are, us, them, whatever.
Well, Latinx is another ridiculous thing to refer to Latinos, And then finally, they are not going to renew the Center for Racial Equity. They're going back to normal because it's been a backlash to corporate America now to initiate these programs that are based on the complete fiction that America today, as of today, is a systematically racist country, because it is not a systematically racist country. We've had a black president. We have 2 black Supreme Court justices. We have, at the moment, we've had one other besides these 2. We have innumerable African-American legislatures. We have a black mayor.
That noise in the background.
And we have it's the cats. They're very excited about the end of DEI too, because they feel that they have been discriminated against also. I mean, this is an end to the whining class of people who think that their lives and the misfortunes in their lives revolve around their gender, race, or sexually ambiguous tendencies, or whatever you want to call it.
Rather than placing at least some attribution, some blame, some responsibility upon failures of their own or failures of parenting.
Exactly. Well, I also I'm a big fan of Pete Hegseth. He is determined to root the DEI out of our military and put an end to another one of the Biden's failed initiatives.
I have to say, I agree that there should be some step back, but if he has in mind that purging of, quote, DEI generals, as he put it, or some like phrase, I think that's misinterpreting the role of the military in the U.S., who follow their civilian instructions, and that's what those guys have been doing. And you can change the policy and then go backward, but I don't think you purge guys of following instructions as they're ordered to do, which is required for combat readiness, oh, by the way.
Well, they got those orders from the commander-in-chief. And you've made this point before. As a veteran who fought in wars in this country, unlike Tampon Tim Waltz. I'm sorry to be repetitive, but I do love slamming those two, and I'm sure John Kerry will be in Nantucket at his wealthy wife's home that he doesn't pay for, that she does, as the gigolo scumbag that he is. But anyway, Stu, that is one thing I can say I'm very thankful for. Thank you, Walmart. I would never shop at your low-rent store, but a lot of people do. A lot of the deplorables shop there, and the deplorables have had enough of DEI.
Well, all right. Let me give you another story. I like telling stories, true stories. I pick stuff out of the news that just stimulates me on maybe a legal issue, an ethical issue, a thought, something of thoughtfulness. So in July 2024, a fraternity and a sorority at Dartmouth joined forces and held a party. A couple of guys from the fraternity who were over 21 went out and got booze. The sorority was providing the venue for the party. When the party was over, some of the partygoers decided to go swimming at a local not a watering hole as in bar, but a local river. And then there's a guy named Wan Zhang, J-A-N-G, presumably Chinese, a sophomore who is less than 20 years old and who is probably a pledge in that fraternity. So some go swimming. A heavy rainstorm came about and caused the group to get out of the water. Zhang was not one of the ones who came out. And the next night, his body was found at the bottom of the river. Now, what I'd ask the listeners is to consider some of the following facts. Zhang was a biomedical engineering major who was valedictorian of his high school class. His blood level was over 2 times the lawful limit for drivers. And importantly, Zhang did not know how to swim. That's been confirmed by a few sources. Now, what happened out of this? 2 fraternity brothers. First of all, I'd ask people to say, what do they think should have happened? But now I'll tell you what has happened to date is new because this occurred in July 24. 2 fraternity brothers were charged with a misdemeanor, providing alcohol to an underage person. Misdemeanor charge was also lodged against the sorority for facilitating drinking at a so-called drinking house, an underage drinking house. Now, let me add one more thing. And that maybe I hinted at it before, and I didn't discover this until reading a second or a third article about the incident. The police are now investigating the possibility of hazing. And if hazing was involved, and you could see how it could be, and I've got a personal note at the end of this which tells you how it was, a report says that they were investigating the possibility of hazing. And if hazing was involved, then you add other possibilities of higher charges against those who would have brought about his getting into the water or maybe staying under the water, or who knows. You don't know at this point. I don't know. There's also, just as a relevant adjunct, in New York, and I assume most states, there's a law against bars serving, over-serving people. And if they fail to serve properly, they can be responsible. Not necessarily, but they can be responsible for incidents that occur when that person leaves the bar, like the car accident kind of thing. This is not quite the same. Why? Because, and first of all, there's no statute covering what we're talking about. The bar stuff is subject to a specific statute, and this would presumably not apply. But there we are. I think the court was unwilling to absolve. I think not the court, but I think the prosecutors were unwilling to absolve Wang. Did I get that right? Wan Zhang. Unwilling to resolve him absolutely of responsibility, but there are too many potential intervening causes, it seemed to me, that prevented them from saying these guys caused the death of Mr. X. I'm just guessing now, but there are only 2 misdemeanors, and they were for these not abstract things, but distant offenses. I don't think it necessarily points to any lack of a willingness of a court of a prosecutor to do what's right. I'm not sure they had the facts in their lap just yet. I'm not looking forward, but I'm interested in the idea of the investigation of hazing, and that could change the entire picture. One note, personal note on the hazing thing. I was a pledge master in my fraternity, and the pledge class that I was in charge of, I did some things that were of the time. But one of them, and I won't describe it, other than to say,
Oh, no, you have to disclose.
have to disclose. I guess I could disclose some things.
What kind of debaucherous behaviors did you force these poor kids into?
No, it was just, well, it was done to several people, but actually, in this one case, it was unfortunate because the person had a medical condition. So I played soccer at college, and we used this thing called balm, the hot stuff we called it, on cold days to put on your body under your uniform. And I applied. Let me just say, I applied.
You
some
put it
balm.
on there.
I'm saying I applied some balm to probably several, I don't recall, but to one person, and turns out he had a heart condition. And I didn't know what the outcome of that was going to be as it unraveled. And I felt, of course, horrible as years went past. He went on to become a successful practicing doctor. But when I finally caught up with him, I years later at a reunion of our class, I said, it's been bothering me all these years, and I'm just terribly sorry for what I did. But it's that kind of stupidity that we'll see what comes out of this case. But I have suspicions that Mr. Zhang didn't go into the water
on his own if he couldn't swim.
if he knows he couldn't swim and he's that bright, no matter how much he drank.
Well, you may have a point. And the story that you mentioned is very consistent with many of these fraternity hazings where we have excessive drinking, drug use, and people either dying or going into comas from it. And frankly, what I find so amazing, these Ivy League / elite schools have all these policies of, left-wing inclusion and all the rest. Yeah, at the same, yes, they have these fraternities which are basically exclusive clubs for a bunch of barbarians. I think they should all be abolished. I'm sorry, I know you remember, but they are not a positive force on university campuses generally. It is just basically a club to drink, have sex, and cause trouble. And I see no.
Sounds good. I'm sorry, that all sounds fine.
Really?
No, I'm just
Look,
kidding.
I
Let me say that fraternity, and I am still friendly, and I was the class of 64 in college. I am still friendly with a large group of people.
Well, I'm sure it's a bonding thing, but you can make friends.
No, but it had wondrous elements, wonderful friendships, people successful, educated, people who succeeded, wonderful friendships. And I think there is a role for them, but there's no question that things can get out of hand.
Well, I think you can make friends through other means, and that the destructive nature and the number of people who seem to die on an annual basis at the basis of some fraternity drinking / prank is enough, and it needs to go. It needs to end. And how universities will put at some of the universities, they give them real estate to live in, and they get to live there for free. It's ridiculous. It's gotta go. And I mean, there are a lot of other places where the money can go that basically organize debauchery. And
There is. I don't want to stand up for organized debauchery, but
and I know you went to a nerd university. You went to Johns Hopkins. So do they? I didn't even know they had fraternities there.
oh God, yeah.
Well, I guess it was a while ago. I'm sure now they don't have the same level of Greek culture at a place like that. And
I suspect they do.
oh, they may be. I don't know, because I'm done with it. I'm out with it. I was a GDI. That was my fraternity at college.
Goddamn independence.
You
Really? I got that.
you did.
I never heard it took.
They can all go to hell.
Okay.
And when they came to recruit in my room, I wouldn't even talk to them. I was like, get away from me. But I'm antisocial anyway.
Made
so-
my life there.
Well, it's an unfortunate story, and it's a sad story that someone with such promise would die under such circumstances. And this is why there needs to be some kind of change to the.
We'll see the facts first.
But on a more thankful note, Stu,
Yeah.
now to get back to positive, to sweetness and light that is me.
It's a big moment.
I want to talk about something else I'm really grateful for. I can't imagine. I never thought I'd be grateful that Donald Trump had become president again, because that's kind of shocking. But one of the people he has appointed, who is someone who is going to put an end to this mass migration into our country, the drugs that are coming across, the gangs, the criminals, and just people we cannot handle and don't have the social structure to, deal with, which we don't.
And shouldn't have an
And
obligation to
of
fix.
course, in reaction to Trump's first term, Biden came in and reversed everything he did without realizing what the consequences would be. And they did it to be spiteful, partially, and also sanctimonious, right? And then we have all these liberals with their sanctuary cities and blah, blah, blah. And of course, that blew up in their face because then all the migrants got sent here from Texas and they're all
A
pissed.
brilliant political move. I said, this man really did something. It's called put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, and they couldn't because that's typical of liberals. The only money they want to put up is yours. But Tom Homan has been appointed as the border czar, and this is a serious person. This isn't Matt Gaetz, and he is guaranteeing mass deportations. And in reaction to this, number of the liberals have we're going to fight to the death over this. For example, that I don't even know what to call him, that ridiculous Phil Murphy in New Jersey was saying they're going to fight to the death. That guy is such a pathetic, spineless loser. I don't know if he's fighting to the death on my behalf, we're in trouble. Okay, that's all I have to say because he's weak. Well, this Denver mayor, Mike Johnson, basically said he's going to resist the mass migration, to mass deportations, and he's not going to cooperate with the federal authorities in violation of federal law. And Tom Homan basically said, well, if people like that want to not enforce the law and they want to violate the law, he's going to have them arrested. Okay. And of course, Mike Johnson, after he heard this, started softening his position and back down because most liberals, they don't have spines. They're spineless people. They're disgusting. And that's, I think, a funny little story. But you know what? I think that we're going to see an even harsher crackdown on immigration into this country as a consequence of the Biden excesses and the incompetence and the complete nonsensical nature of it all. And there's nothing they can do about it because America is sick of it.
Had Kamala Harris the spine and the willingness and the character to distance herself on Biden early on, long before, early on, and initiate an aggressive posture at the border, I think there was a good chance they would have won the election. And I am certainly in favor of vigorous enforcement of our borders and orderly ingress. But that one note, and I mentioned it once before, I hope that czar does move forward with a nuanced approach, and they suggest it. Initially, they're going to be going after
The criminals, yeah.
and others. And I think that's a wise posture and not anything anyone would disagree with. 9 out of 10 wouldn't disagree. On the other hand, after that, I hope there's a bit of a pause to think about making distinctions among groups of people who are here, even unlawfully. I think a reasoned approach could have a very vigorous number of folks leaving the country, an inability of undesirables to move in, and a measured movement toward peaceful resolution.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, these liberal governors like that J.B. Pritzker, who is so fat, Stu, it's amazing. The guy couldn't even cross the street without assistance. He is going to fight to the death for us, Stu.
Well, now wait a minute. You just hit me. You said Pritzker, and it reminded me of something I saw in the paper yesterday or the day before about the Biden administration now proposing that certain of these, we'll say fat-fighting drugs, but originally designed for other purposes, are going to be
Covered by Medicare, yeah.
That is a disastrous policy, and it's absolutely against it supports the notion that this is okay. It induces people to take more drugs without long-term impact known right now as to what happens when they stop using this stuff.
Well, when they stop it, supposedly you gain back the weight, right? And the drugs are intended for diabetes, not weight loss. but Biden's trying to get his last bits of trouble in before he leaves, and he's sprinkling more chaos
Can
throughout
it
the.
pass without legislation?
I'm
Or is
not
this
sure.
something that's just
I'm sure it's probably something that can be reversed because I think if you implement rules within 90 days of the next administration, these things can be voided. So I'm not so sure Biden's going to get away with it. Maybe he should be trying to get Medicare to cover, more medications for dementia and Alzheimer's, and that would be very appropriate in his case.
Thank you for the medical update.
Thank you. I'm here for you, Stu. With my medical background, at least I will admit I have no scientific background. Unlike,
No, don't go there.
yeah, but I mean, look at the Democrats. They want to give us lectures on science, and most of them can't even spell their own names. I mean, they know nothing about science. Starting off with that stupid blowhard Al Gore. Don't get me started on him.
I'm not. I'm trying to stop you. Period. On that.
His books and his movies were riddled with scientific inaccuracies, but I don't have time to go over that right now. So stupid. Oh, and I'm so glad Tipper Gore was there to censor my rock lyrics. His stupid wife, who he divorced. But, Stu, we do have a good amount of time, so I think I'm going to launch into one more thing that I am grateful for and happy and thankful for. And then I'm going to leave the rest of the time for your little stories.
One little story to go.
Okay. Well, I never thought I would say this in a million years, Stu, but I hate electric cars. I think they're useless and improper to use, but I am grateful for Elon Musk, and I'm going to tell you why. He has become, and he's declared himself, the George Soros of the right. And the difference between George Soros and Elon Musk are very different. First of all, Soros is like 94 and has about $65 billion. And Elon is 54 or 53 and has like 300 billion, a huge amount of money, way more than George Soros. He's got way more resources. And he is planning to use some of his resources to fight the Soros assault on our criminal justice system, where he went in and used money from his Open Society Fund to elect these left-wing prosecutors like Garcon, the guy up in San Francisco. Those have all been thrown out. In Portland, one was thrown out, et cetera. They were all getting thrown out bit by bit. But we still have these cancers left, like Krasny or Krasner in Philadelphia. And, of course, the most notorious one, Fat Alvin Bragg.
And you're saying these people were all their elections or their political support a good deal came from Soros?
Some of it did, yeah. I mean, I don't know how much Fat Alvin Bragg, but the other ones for sure got money through his foundations or the like. And so I want to applaud Elon for taking on this issue and fighting back against George Soros, who is a crook. He's an tax cheat, and I think he was even found guilty of insider trading in France, so he can never return there. And he's been trying to fight that in the courts for years, and it's been unsuccessful. As far as I know, Elon hasn't had any criminal charges, and I know how Democrats love to talk about criminals, even though one of their biggest criminals, Bill Clinton, is still part of their fold. But Alvin Bragg should not be reelected. And I've learned he's up for another term in 2025. And we have a courageous soldier who was a former Democrat. She was a legal aid criminal defense lawyer. She worked on school boards, and she has announced that she's going to go after Fat Alvin Bragg as a Republican in New York City, which will be a tough slog for her.
Well, if she was a criminal defense attorney or a legal aid defense attorney, how do we know that her policies have changed?
She has claimed that she is going to remove the mentally ill from the streets.
That's what should occur.
She is going to prosecute criminals regardless of their immigration status. And
sounds good.
That on day one, Alvin Bragg's memo that he put on his first day of office about how he wasn't going to enforce all these crimes is going to be repealed immediately.
That's a winner.
We need to support this woman. And what has Alvin Bragg done as a prosecutor? He has pursued politically motivated cases against the bodega owner. Remember how he's going after him? About Daniel Penny, and of course the Trump prosecution. P.S. That's all going up in smoke because Judge Maron has recently ruled that he's postponing it indefinitely, a sentencing, and now Trump's lawyers are going to have the opportunity to go in and seek dismissal. So this grand politically motivated case is going to fall flat on its face, as we both thought from the very beginning when the verdict. And another thing that Alvin has given us, he has enabled and supported the Venezuelan gangs who are terrorizing tourists and residents in Midtown as they stay in the Roosevelt Hotel on our tax dollars. Now, I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or what you are. Alvin Bragg needs to go. He can go and perhaps maybe go to a fat camp instead of ruining our city any further. He is the embodiment of everything that's wrong with the Democrat Party, and he needs to go.
I probably don't agree with everything you've said, but I certainly agree he has to go.
You mean you don't think he should be forced into a fat camp?
Well, no.
How much pumpkin pie do you think Alvin is going to have this Thanksgiving? That tub of lard. Although I'm sure him and his liberal friends think Thanksgiving is nothing but an event memorializing exploitation of the native lands and blah, blah, blah.
I mean, Thanksgiving is, to me, I don't have, parents allowed and this and that, but I do think we have so much to be thankful for, though we're in a troubled time in the last 6 years, 7 years. I think we are a country that still people aspire to enter. Hopefully they'll enter only lawfully, but we're lucky to be here. There are several hundred countries out there that would be lesser places to live with less opportunity.
Well, not according to liberal logic. But on that note, Stu, why don't we end this on a high note?
I got a little thing. It's cute. So I walk across the street the other day. I mean, the streets are theater in New York City. I get into conversations and meet people all the time. Every day something new is happening, sometimes good, sometimes bad. So I walk across the street the other day and I meet a man who's got a ferret on his shoulders. Now, that's F-E-R-R-E-T. Some of you know what it is. It's in the weasel family. It's small. It's adorable looking to me. Just a little thing that's, I'd say he was about, 2 feet long. And he looks like something you might wrap around your neck as a furred collar. And the guy told me, I said, what's going on with the ferret? And he says, well, he's my pet. He said he was living in Wisconsin, said he just came here. He said he's been a model there and wants to be an actor here. And then he said his bike had been stolen and he's living in a car just on the south side of Washington Square. I wanted to say, welcome to New York, but I'm not sure there's been much planning on the part of this fellow. Because just saying I'm here in New York, I want to be an actor and a model, it's just not that easy. I know from some experience, but I did think he was being truthful. I just think he was expecting too much too soon. I hope he can survive. I sent him an email.
But wait a second here. I'm like a little apoplectic.
Why?
How old was this guy?
I'd guess he was 30.
And he was a model in Wisconsin.
Well, there can be models all over the place.
Was that?
Oh, there can be models. I mean,
what was he modeling in Wisconsin? The cheesehead?
Looks, come on. If you were in Madison or other places, there are needs for models, and who knows, you can sometimes win a national ad no matter where you live. You can get a national commercial. Now I'm not saying he was successful. I'm not trying to overstate his background. That's what he said he was. I didn't think, frankly, his look was that distinctive, but none, and that's useful to have a distinctive look.
Right.
But at any rate, that's what he said. And so I said, well, look, I felt sorry for the fellow. And I said, I'm going to give you my email address. And if you can reach me, I'm going to get back to you. And then I'll invite you to sit down. We can talk at some coffee house, and maybe I can give you some ideas about how to move forward if you're able to. I also told him, when I thought about it, I was saying, there's something odd about this ferret matter. And so
That's an understatement.
well, no. I don't know why you think so. I think the weasel it was adorable. He went into my jacket. He started crawling out the front. Oh, come on, it was adorable.
I'm about
Crawling
to
out.
it. Okay.
He crawled out the sleeve. Just adorable. But I wasn't sure that having a ferret in New York City was lawful, and it turns out it is not.
Right, I know.
Now, but it's lawful around the state. Other than New York City took the position that this is no good.
You can't have them as pets. Yeah, I've heard.
What? Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, Wisconsin is one of the 4 or 5 states that has no restriction on having animals, domestic or wild, as pets. One of only about 4 or 5 states, which is an odd thing. I mean,
Did you get the ferret's name?
yes, I did. I asked.
What?
It's Madison, as in Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh my gosh.
So yes, it's Madison. So
And Addison the
I
ferret.
happened to greet someone who lives in our building, and I knew his girl's name was Madison. I told him about this. It was on the same day I met the guy with the
I'm
ferret.
sure he was very pleased to know that his daughter and a ferret have the same name.
Now, I wanted to point out that it reminds me when I saw the ferret and I thought about the legality of the maintenance of a ferret as a pet. It reminded me of a case. Now, I don't know. I don't see a light going off with you.
No, I don't.
But in 2001,
Yeah.
Antoine Yates.
I don't know what this is.
No,
Where we go?
no. This is you'll remember this as soon as I tell you a little bit more. Antoine Yates was then a 31-year-old construction worker, and he brought home an 8-week-old tiger cub called Ming. He named the cat Ming. He brought it home to his apartment in a Harlem housing project.
I think I kind of remember.
Oh,
this.
God, yeah. 3 years later, Ming, probably because he's been getting 20 pounds a day of chicken thighs,
Oh my gosh.
Ming had grown to 425 pounds. Authorities,
425 pounds?
not strange when you see these things, and not strange, but, and 20
That's
pounds.
almost as weak as Alvin Bragg.
Yes, I know. Authorities eventually discovered Ming in 2003. That's 2 years after he had him. And Ming was relocated to an Ohio sanctuary. He died of natural causes, I read, in 2019. Yates served a brief stint in jail for illegally keeping an animal. Now, one of the things that just struck me was, and I think anyone has to start to say, didn't anyone report?
Apparently not.
Apparently not. No one has, the cop said, no one has reported this, and no one has said, how stupid. I called 28 times. You wonder what was going on there.
I don't know. Well, look at
They roar. And you can
you're correct, and I'm sure when the lion went to the bathroom, it wasn't a small amount.
There's a tiger,
But look what happens in our building. We had a guy in the front of the building who was having meth parties until like late into the evenings, and they called the police and they didn't do anything.
oh, well. Yeah, that's another problem. But
So I could see something like that getting washed under the table.
I don't think so. I just, no one said that's untrue. No one said, in Harlem Project, no one said, what do you mean? We called 28 times this and that. It's apparently correct that they didn't get complaints.
Well, I know if I ever want to get a pet lion, where I'm going to go live. But Stu, this has raised a number of alarm bells. I don't want you meeting the homeless guy who pretends to be a model with a ferret living out of his car. Not unless you were in public in broad daylight and you have someone with you.
I understand one could think there's some oddities here.
There's a lot of oddities. It's right that you would let that thing go in your up your arms.
When you saw this thing, it was just adorable. The thing was adorable.
All right, I think that I'm really disturbed. I'm thankful though that once again to get back to this theme of being thankful. I'm thankful that this crazy with the ferret, the model, the Abercrombie model. I'm grateful that he wasn't violent or crazy, but I do feel that this is not a mentally stable personality that you have come across. And once again, I have to admonish you and tell you to stop talking to people This is New York. We can't be friendly just to everyone.
We got that. Oh, God. The streets are just fertile territory for wonderful experiences.
Including getting killed. So that is, you need to be careful, Stu.
I try.
Although, you know what? You've made it this far without any problems. So
I don't. That could change. You never know. But I'm content and I'm appreciative.
God bless. And, you know, hopefully in the next year, as 2025 comes upon us, we can feel vindicated in a way as the liberal progressives take one slam after the next.
Progress at the border would make me, once that begins.
Assuming it actually happens, because let's face it, we could be optimistic now, but we know what we're dealing with. And I'm not sure how effective they will all be, but
Litigation up the yin-yang and
from all these communists, yeah. But anyway, on that note, happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you, kid.
All right.